How's it going, guys? Mr. Rumble here, giving another DIY video. Today I'm going to show you how I make my custom shift boot. So this is my existing shift boot I grabbed from my car. I'm not going to go in detail of how I removed it, because every car is different. Basically, this shift boot is held in by this trapezoidal ring. So the first thing you want to do is obviously remove your shift boot from your car. Next, you'll need some fabric of your choice. I'm going with this checkered fabric. Next, you'll need a shift boot holder. Basically, this goes on top of your shift boot and it holds your new shift boot in place. This screws on top of your shifter, and you're gonna want one that has the same thread and pitch diameter as your shifter. So this thread's on, and then it'll hold your shift boot in place, and then you'll also have your shift knob up here. To hold your shift boot in place, I have kind of like a gasket rubbery elastic band. It's basically used to hold your fabric in place so it doesn't fall off. And lastly, you're gonna want a sewing machine to sew your fabric, a pair of scissors, ruler, whatever you need, marker maybe. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright, the first thing to do is to remove any center console pieces holding your shift boot in place from the car. I'm not going to go in detail because every car is different. However, if you have a version 4 GC8 and newer, it should look like this. My shift boot ring is held in place with 6 metal washers that are fitted to the center console piece. So with a pair of pliers and an EXACTO knife, I had to carefully remove them without breaking any pegs. So first things first, I'm gonna remove this from the shift boot ring. This is held by glue, so you're gonna have to be very careful. Well, you see here, I broke it really quick because it's very brittle. Bad. Be careful, because I broke. I managed to snap 2 pieces off this, which is no good. But the ring is still intact, so it'll still work. So your stock shift boot should look somewhat like this. If not, you'll have to modify your own template, which I'm going to cover in a bit. My shifter is kind of slanted in this direction, and the front 2 pieces are definitely smaller. I'm going to flip this inside out. You can see that there are actually 4 pieces of fabric that are sewed together. So to do this DIY, you're probably going to want a sewing machine. But I mean, I guess you can hand sew it. But yeah, sewing machine is the way to go. And that's what I'm going to use. The bottom of the shift boot has these cutouts for the 6 washers and pegs. If we place it on a flat surface, we can trace it out if we really wanted to. But since fabric is fairly easy to work with, you might not even need to make these cutouts at all. Next, I'm going to measure the dimensions of the shift boot. Grab a ruler, we're going to measure each side, write it down so then we know what to cut out of our fabric and sew. My shift boot consists of 3 different sized pieces that are all trapezoids in shape. this may be different for you. Since the side has an arch, kind of, we're gonna give an extra fabric. So we're gonna go with probably 17 plus. That's about centimeters, so you add 2 centimeters plus 2 centimeters. And on top, it doesn't really matter. The long side. Now we go to the short side. Technically this side should be 26.5. 26.5. Now, the last side, short side, call it small. It'll obviously be 24. 24. And 1.5 again. Alright, so this is what we got. Now using those dimensions, it's time to mock up a template on cardboard. This is a pretty important step because we can use the template to see if we measured correctly, and we can also use this as a guide before cutting any fabric. I repeated this 2 more times because in total I have 3 different sized pieces. After drafting out the pieces, it's time to cut them out. In the beginning I used a pair of scissors, but later on I found out that an EXACTO knife is much more faster and efficient. Alright, so I'm finally done cutting out my template. Notice how it slants and tilts towards one end? That's exactly what my stock shift boot looks like. The next step is to trace out the templates on the fabric. It's best to trace it on the back of the fabric because it's usually more faded and shows up better. Also, if you screw up the outlines, you wouldn't see it when it's done.
Is recorded on 2 separate tracks, each one giving special emphasis to certain sections of the orchestra, as heard from those positions. Now, when played back simultaneously on 2 separate systems, the sounds are blended together to achieve a new dimension in sound impossible to obtain in a monaural recording.
After tracing, it's time to cut them out. I usually like to either cut on the line, but sometimes I give it a little tolerance and cut around the outside so it provides room for error. For the best fit and finish, it is recommended that you iron your fabric before sewing. Now before sewing, I like to align my pieces in the correct orientation, so while I sew them one by one, I don't have to think which pieces are attached to which. This prevents frustration if I sewed the wrong pieces together and saves me time in the end. Align the first two pieces along their edges. It is critical that the two outside faces are the faded sides of the fabric, while the inner faces are the good sides of the fabric. We are going to be sewing on top of the faded side, and then we will flip it inside out. Start sewing approximately half a centimeter away from the outer edge. Sew the next piece onto your existing two pieces and repeat the same steps. Once you're done, it should look like this. This is the inside, so I'm going to be flipping it inside out. Next, I'm going to be hot gluing my shift boot to the ring. I'm using a hot glue gun because if I decide to change the shift boot later on, I have the option to. It's also going to be pretty secure since the fabric is sandwiched in between the ring and the center console piece. Now for the plastic pegs that go into the ring holes, you can poke the fabric to make these holes, or you can trace the cutouts like I said earlier. But if you can't be bothered to do neither, then just move your fabric out of the way. Next, we'll have to attach the shift boot holder to the shift boot with the elastic gasket band. And then the shift knob goes on top, just like this. The shift boot is ready to go into the center console piece. I will reinstall the 6 washers back on the pegs and it's good to go in the car. Alright, so the shift boot holder just simply screws onto the shifter. So the last step to complete this is to screw on the shift knob back in place, and we are done. Thanks so much for watching, guys. This video took me a while to edit since it had so many details, but if you found my video helpful, again, please subscribe for more, and don't forget to work hard and stay humble. Peace, guys.